Hello again. Welcome back to the Tipitina's Record Podcast. We are here at Number C Studios in New Orleans, Louisiana. My name is Ben Ellman.
I'm Robert Mercurio, and we're here to talk about the new Walter Wolfman Washington release.
An album that we've been super pumped about for lots of reasons that we'll get into in a minute. And we have a special guest here, Adam Shipley, who has been Walter Wolfman Washington's manager for many years.
Our poker buddy and our good friend.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot of titles.
Before we bring him out, though, we might as well plug the club.
Which is the reason we're here. It's a curated vinyl music club that 6 times a year you get a beautiful 12-inch record delivered to your house that has been curated by us here, the Tipitina staff. Covering music from New Orleans, Gulf Coast, reissues, unheard live recordings, and
just generally killing music.
Yeah, all killing.
And a lot of stuff, if you're not a member of the club, we're kind of talking to the people who aren't members of the club already. You know, we've had releases from great legacy artists like Professor Longhair, James Booker, Dr. John, Etta James, Fats Domino, Dirty Dozen Brass Band. God, I'm just going through the list here.
It's just
so many.
Extensive, yeah.
And so a lot of these records are unheard recordings that we've unearthed, and you sign up for either 6 months or a year, and you get records mailed to you, and it's super cool. So if you're not a member, you should maybe think about joining.
Yeah, tipitinasrecordclub.com.
And if you are a member, then you probably are holding in your hands a copy of the Walter Wolfman Washington Feel So at Home record, which is our latest release. And yeah, so we brought Adam Shipley, our good friend, his manager, in, and we're going to talk to him a little about Walter Wolfman Washington.
I feel so at home. I feel so at home. I feel so at home. Feel so at home. I like the pictures.
All right, welcome, Shipley.
Why, thank you. I'll start out with a ow, which is the Walter Wolfman Washington call.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here. It's my first podcast ever, which hopefully it'll lead to many, many more, or another one.
They're so lucrative. It's crazy.
That's huge. I got a LaCroix out of this one, so it pays off big time. No, I'm thrilled to be here, and thrilled that you all put out his final record. I know you were talking about reissues or never before heard music, which this is, but from what I'm gathering, this is your first real original music release that's just on Tipitina's record.
That's correct. We've done like a license with Anders and Trombone Shorty in the past, but this is the first one that's kind of like on
exclusively
our label.
on Tipitina's record, which is
exclusively for now, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're a member of the club, then you get a limited edition colored vinyl while they last.
While they last, and a lanyap, which you always include in your records.
Yes, a really cool lanyap. We won't talk about that. It'll be a surprise, I guess.
I'm not going to mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's dive into who Walter was for people that might not be aware of who he was and what he meant to New Orleans and the world. My first experiencing Walter was when I moved here to go to college, and seeing him up Saturday night at the Maple Leaf, just playing 3 blistering sets till 3 a.m, and he was one guy to me that got better as the night went on. and like that third set, he'd be just on fire and totally blew my mind. And he seemed like one of the last of that era of bluesmen.
Yeah, well, we got to go back then, because this is
this is 90. That
this
I
is 90,
saw,
right? So if you're not familiar with Walter Wolfman Washington, amazing R&B guitar player, singer who started in the 50s, backing people like Ernie Cato, Lee Dorsey, Irma Thomas. I'm sure I'm forgetting some others.
Johnny Adams.
Johnny Adams, yes. Yeah. He held the house band at some really infamous New Orleans clubs like the Dewdrop Inn, also Dorothy's
Medallion Lounge with George Porter Jr., with the large women that used to dance in cages there.
Yes.
I've seen pictures.
Wow.
So his history is so deep and embedded, in New Orleans music that, like, when Rob and myself got to New Orleans, he was just like a larger than life, incredibly talented sort of just, why is this guy not as famous as, B.B. King or Ray Charles or any of these other guys? And he was a dude that was playing, like Rob said, at the Maple Leaf Club as a weekly with his just absolutely smoking band.
God, they were so...
He had a band called the Roadmasters. That was his band. They were just an incredible, incredible powerhouse band for especially people like young kids like Rob and myself coming into New Orleans. It was just mind-blowing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd never seen anything really like that, especially in a small club. And
yeah, insanely tight horn arrangements and
just band was on fire. And he was just such a sweet guy too. Anybody out there who ever probably met him, or he was, me being a 17-year-old kid from out of town, he would talk, and he liked to spread the knowledge, and he was very, very welcoming and friendly, which was rare for me coming from D.C., to meet a guy that was of his age and stature, and he was so welcoming and nice. It was cool.
Yeah, you could have a beer with him. You could, sit at the bar, and he would tell you stories and bite your neck.
Well, that took a little time before he would bite you.
Yeah, I didn't get the bit neck until...
it took me a couple of years, and that was his, being the Wolfman, that was his sign of love and acceptance. And I remember I booked him on this Paul Peck's festival, and I was waiting for the bite. And then finally afterwards, I gave him a hug and said it was great. And then I felt these large teeth on my necks, and I realized that I had arrived. Now he has been kicked out of some clubs for biting a sound guy before. So it depends on.
And those were his new teeth too.
Yes, so when he started out, there were no teeth.
Yeah, he couldn't bite you. You would just get one little.
You'd get gummed.
Yeah,
or you'd get two little nicks, which would more be like a vampire than a werewolf.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was fantastic. I saw him for the first time. I used to book a lot of music in Orlando. That's how I hooked up with Ben and Robert. But yeah, 1989, a place called the Winter Park Brewing Company, and we started bringing bands through. John Mooney, Katie Webster, a bunch of, Bo Diddley, a bunch of other ones. But that was the first time I saw the Wolfman, and same thing. In all New Orleans, I came to my first Jazz Fest in '89. So
same time, yeah.
Yeah,
we all kind of run.
Yeah, and just all of this, it was brand new to me. But to see music I'd never seen before, and then someone like all these guys, but like Wolfman, you were just in awe. And and that's when he started having those burning records with Rounder, and
yeah, he recorded for a bunch of records on Rounder. 4 records on Rounder. Was he on Black Talk too, or Alligator?
I don't know if he was on Black. There was a couple off labels before that, but his main ones were with Rounder. It might have even been 5 that Scott Billington produced a lot of them.
Yeah.
But was just left such an impression. And same thing as when I started. I've been to dating myself, but every Jazz Fest except one since '89. But when I started getting close with you guys, and you were like, you have to come see him, and same thing. You go to the Maple Leaf during Jazz Fest, he'd play till 6 in the morning, and it was just mind blowing.
Isn't there that famous, like, Tom Fitzpatrick, his sax player, is like, we gotta quit. I gotta go drive my kid to school. He like looks at his watch, like, we gotta get out of here.
It's time to do the duties. But yeah, just amazing. And same thing, just so warm, so soulful, and he did travel the world and spend a lot of time in Europe and all of that. But his big thing was he loved playing here, and he would even say in interviews, he's like, if you can become famous in New Orleans, then you can travel the world, but you've really arrived.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He loved playing here. I guess we didn't mention, but he recently passed.
He did, unfortunately, passed of cancer December of 2022.
Mm-hmm. So, this record that brings us all here today is his posthumous release.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, though, we should also mention his park. I just want to bring that up.
Okay.
Just because it's so cool that he's got his own park here in New Orleans. Since he's passed, his wife helped organize naming a park that's right across the street from Jazz Fest, the Walter Wolfman Washington Memorial Park.
On Esplanade.
Yeah.
And, it's beautiful.
Park, yeah.
Beautiful. It's got a little library there, too, free library. But, it's pretty amazing. And, so many people just revered him and cared for him. So it's great to have a lasting physical thing like a park, but then also this record. When I started managing Walter about 8-9 years ago, always loved him, started managing him, and one of the first thing I remember is talking to Ben outside of Tipitina's, I believe, before Galactic had bought it, and I was like, man, I'm managing Walter now, let's make some music, and Ben it'd be an honor. So that's kind of what started it out, and the first record with Ben was on Anti Records. But
didn't that whole thing start with a couple songs for something, an acoustic? Like I think you approached me like, I want to record Walter doing something acoustic.
Yeah, so it's
which he had never done.
He had never done, and I just said I want to do something different, and I brought up Walter stripped down musically. That is,
I see what you did there.
Yeah, thank you. Nobody wants to see that. We loved him, but we didn't need to see that. And then,
But was that for anything in particular? That first time you approached me about doing
to just
acoustic?
get him in the studio and let's see what happens with it. And you had a previous relationship with Anti Records, but it was just bringing him in, and we brought him into was it the Parlor?
I think it was we did a couple acoustic things here at this studio.
Right. And then we did just a couple of just refs, but then it was the Parlor because Eric Heigl was
that's where we recorded the stuff that made the record.
That's where we recorded the stuff, and he started out, which you have in the record, Let's Get to Work, and he starts drinking, but just him on an acoustic guitar, and it, as does with Walter, took many takes, but he just kept going and going, and Heigl was freaked out with just how committed he was to getting that down. Yeah. And that was it. Yeah, and it was the very first one was like him on an acoustic guitar. Yeah. And then you brought in, for the backup was Stanton, James Singleton, and Torkanowski.
I want to go back to the acoustic thing because one story I remember about that was, I remember we did demos here and he played a bunch of stuff, and he hadn't really played a lot of acoustic guitar, I think, in his career. And we recorded here, it was cool, and we picked a couple songs, and then when we went to record at the Parlor for the record, it was much better microphones, much better recording environment, and like he was getting a lot of noise while he was playing the acoustic guitar because I think it was his nails were really long. Yep. So did we tape them up or we cut them? We sent somebody out for clippers.
Yep.
I think.
And maybe Barbara was around then and did that.
Wolf claws?
Cutting the claws.
Cutting the claws. We were having a hard time
because it was
recording.
Buzzing so bad.
Yeah, he would hit the steel wound strings with his nails, and it would you'd hear that
yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we were off to the races, and it was just a beautiful record. My Future is My Past, and then that came out on Anti, and I just said to Ben, as long as he's still healthy, let's start bringing him back to the studio.
Yeah.
And we did, and this was over the course of 2 years, 3 years maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. COVID
I think we should maybe even back up and talk about the whole thing, though, with the record the Anti-record, the first one, My Future is My Past, which led to this new one, was, for Walter, really, really different records.
He had never done it before.
Yeah. He spent his career making R&B party records, and that's what he always did, and he always supplied the party. And first record and this new Tips Record Club record, it's kind of like the flip of that. It was a concept record in the sense that everything was going to be really mellow, down tempo, stripped down. It was going to be lush, beautiful, really engaging type vocal in your face. It's not the party record, but the after party record.
The after party, and you always said it's a record that you sit down, play start to finish with your girl and a glass of wine or whatever.
Yeah,
And
and Walter on the first record was really down with that because he had a love for vocal ballads. He really did. He played ballads with the Roadmasters. They had a lot of songs that were like slow and intense, but they were powerful songs with a big killing band, you know.
Yeah.
And these were, in the context of what we were doing, was very much more like a jazz trio with acoustic instruments and brushes and things like that. So he already had this love of singing in that style, you know. So he was super down just to like go down that road and be committal with this sort of concept record. You know?
Yeah, and to just really hear his voice in the raw form.
Yeah.
And it took him a minute because it had been a while, and for Ben, you had known him for years, but not real close. But it took him a while to get comfortable with you. But once he was locked in, then that relationship lasted for years because he was totally comfortable with you in the studio.
And when did you get bit, Ben?
I think early on.
Oh, he bit you early, so you knew you
on.
were in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, before Walter and I were making these records, he had recorded, obviously, with Galactic.
Yeah.
And that was the first time we
right.
had worked in the studio with him. And he came into this studio, and we did a song called
Speaks His Mind.
Speaks His Mind, an album called Yakame, where Walter played the voice of God, written by
As
our
he
friend
should.
Alex McMurray. And so that was the first time that we got to work with him in the studio. And then maybe he had come by and played with us a couple times, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely, he went on Jam Cruise with us.
Right,
We
that
did
was a big epic.
We did a
right.
6-week tour with Trombone Shorty and Prez Hall, and Walter was our special guest every night.
Yeah.
So that was such a fun time for us to get to play with him. You know, we would do a ballad with him and Erica, and then we'd play a couple of his more upbeat songs. And what a treasure, to be able to play with him every night. And his approach every night was just totally different, which was great. On a 6-week tour, to have somebody that's bringing something different to the table every time he hits the stage was
Wild card.
Yeah,
It's wild card. You never know. And sometimes he was so into it, he wouldn't leave the stage.
Yeah, and for 20 minutes sometimes, but it was awesome. It's like we were kind of a band that has our roadmap, and we do what we do, and then you have this guy coming in and throwing the map away and saying, let's do it
Right.
Yeah.
whatever tonight, And
And
we're
it's not like
so
you're
cool.
telling him what to do. He's leading you on what he's doing.
Yes, he had the knowledge, and he had been such a fantastic band leader that he knew how to do that. Just jump into any situation, and I'm gonna run this band now, and it was great. Yeah, I think I was bit on that tour. I think it was after the 20-minute jam.
Okay. So
That
it
was
took you a
when-
while, but you were bit by the wolf.
Yeah,
It's a badge of honor.
We all have that in common. Mm-hmm. So back to the recording. Ben produced it. You guys, the concept. What made this record that came out on the Record Club a little different than the one before?
Well, the first one, there was a concept of trying to make it stripped down, intimate, down-tempo ballads, really focusing on his voice, which was something different for him, really focusing on his voice. He was always been a great R&B singer, but these albums, there was a lot less around him, the first record. And so to me, at least, that album
the focus was his voice.
Yeah.
And everything was really just accompaniment.
Yeah,
Versus,
and he's known as this incredible guitar player, too. That's really his bag, he's a singer, too, but he's known as a guitar player. And so the idea with the second one was to sort of do the same sort of treatment and concept of space and tempo and intimacy, but try to incorporate a little more of like blues, like the straight ahead blues stuff that like he was really good at doing. And
Yeah, because the first one was a little jazzier.
Yeah. Okay.
I hate to throw those terms around, but
if they're
because
gonna
it's
be
all
thrown.
just music, really.
Yeah,
but
I
for
know.
him, it was kind of bringing him a little back into more of his wheelhouse with the same sort of treatment of production and arrangement.
But you did add the production on the newer record. You added strings and horns.
I
Still
couldn't help myself.
very delicately, and some awesome background vocals by Jelly and Josh.
Yeah,
Of course.
Just a little more layers, still very subtle, but
Yeah.
it was
It
little
makes
more.
it that much more lush, which is a term I'm hearing from a lot of people, which is beautiful. And,
It is.
You know, we had Ben had it near the end. He's like, man, I think I'm going to add some strings and some of this. I was like, okay. And then heard the first one, and it was like, all right, that's beautiful. And then he was off to the races. I think we had to stop him at some point.
Yeah. That
but
kind of happened on this record. It just kind of became an opportunity, and some of the songs were speaking to the idea of adding strings or horns or something, whereas some of the other songs were very much just wanted to be acoustic jazz trio type setting.
And who did the strings and the horns on this?
The strings were done by Rick Nelson, who is a great player.
Maroney Studios?
Maroney Studios, yep.
And the horns?
The horns by my cousin, Nick Ellman, who you might know from the band Naughty Professor or
Maroon 5.
Maroon 5.
Or a few other ones that I've seen him post about.
PJs.
PJ Morton.
Yeah.
Kid is on his way.
Kid is on fire.
So that was constructive nepotism.
He was the right man for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Who helped you mix this?
This record was mixed by Mike Napolitano,
A.K.A. Nappy?
Nappy, who is a person that we've worked with for many, many years, and he was really, really involved with Galactic in the beginning, and he helped us set up our first studio, and he's mixed records with us, and he's kind of our go-to dude, man, one of our go-to guys.
Love Nappy.
Yeah, it was great. And it just and same thing as I remember going over to his home studio for, just one of it licking through. And I think with everybody working on this is he just had such a desire to get it right and then also to get it to the point where Walter would love it. And, on that note, it was sorrow and joy. It's, near the end, unfortunately, Walter passed of cancer. And when we got him out of the hospital and we kind of knew it was nearing the end, Ben and I went to his house to play him every song.
Yeah.
And he was still in it, but really couldn't talk much, but it would either be the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
He couldn't speak.
He couldn't. He had the tube in and all of that. But we wanted to make sure that he was cool with every tune. One of his main sayings was, you got to have the understanding of the understanding. So we played through the whole thing, and Ben's like, and I think we should call it the understanding of the understanding. And he looked at us and just thumbs down. So you're like, okay, that's not going to be the title.
And for the listeners who don't know, that is just, I can't really even explain on this podcast what it is, but Walter would spend a lot of time discussing the understanding of the understanding.
Yeah, you never were. I still haven't.
Never understood
I
the
don't
understanding.
completely understand it, but I've tried to have the understanding of the understanding.
It was just some deep old school shit.
Yep.
I think that's what he told me right when he bit me, was like, you got the understanding of the understanding.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. And you did.
But he was even at that point in his sickness, he was very firm on not having this album be called The Understanding of the Understanding. I think that was close to him.
Yeah.
And he wanted to take that with him.
Yeah. And at first we were bummed because we figured that, because same thing, it was bringing that out, to the world, that saying. And then now with you saying that, it makes sense. That was something very personal to him and also something that needed to be introduced to everybody around him by him as opposed to us. And then to me, the title's even more fitting, Feel So at Home.
Yeah.
Because it was, Walter feeling that way, and it's just a perfect title.
Speaking of that, you try to make him feel very at home when he'd record, So what were some of the techniques you used to get him comfortable and to get him warmed up? Or
what was the guy's name? Jack Daniels, I think.
Yeah, you had a couple good stories.
Well, there are a couple stories. There was one story where, generally the way that we made these records were we would do it live in the studio, but Walter, he would either sing or play guitar knowing that they were sort of just a scratch track that he was going to get to come back. So we did get into doing a lot of vocal overdub sessions. We'd kind of have the music straight, and then Walter would come in the studio and we would just focus on the vocals and he would sing it down. And over the course of the recording, I kind of learned that he really performed his best when he was just like slightly loose. He would always walk around with a glass of Jack and Coke. That was his drink, and he would come in with it. And I think his wife Michelle would know, okay, we're going to the studio, baby. Here's your drink.
Get a little primed up,
Yeah,
but not
exactly.
too overprimed.
Exactly. So we knew that there was sort of a formula there that yielded the best results. And so the idea was one time that we would book him an early evening gig. So he would come off of a gig. So he would show up in the studio already warmed up after singing his gig. Maybe he'd had a couple drinks. He'd be feeling good. He would come in, and we would just nail it.
Sounds like a solid concept.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
Well, we booked him a gig at a place in town called the Sidebar, which was like a really nice listening room. I had called a friend of mine who was going down there. I was like, hey, get Walter a drink. I kind of told him the plan. I want him a little loose for the post gig, And I believe maybe Shipley had talked to somebody, the bartender.
These were the COVID gigs at the Sidebar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, we had put some feelers out. Hey, get Walter a little loose. I think we told Michelle, his wife. We told the bartender. We told a friend of mine who was going there. And, lo and behold, everyone gave him drinks. And by the time he got here, man, we just overshot it.
Got to shoot the shot, but it was a little over.
he's a little slurry.
It was. I love Walter, but it was like drunk grandpa.
It was not the most quality.
It was. We had a good hang. We smoked some weed. We tried it.
It was fun. Well, because when he did those records with Scott Billington, Scott would start the sessions at like midnight and stuff like that because it was Walter getting loose. But then you brought him in. I guess it was daytime when you had him on this couch, right?
Yeah, that was the other thing that we sort of learned. Unfortunately, probably a little too late. I'd always throw him. We have a little sort of recording studio where we have our control room upstairs and the recording room is downstairs. So he'd be in a room all by himself with headphones singing into a microphone, which is not always the best situation. So at one point, we were struggling, just decided to bring him upstairs into the control room with the speakers on, sitting on the couch. We turned the lights off. We weren't worried about bleed. Our couch also is one of those couches that you really sink back into, So he was laid back with a drink, joint, lights were off, the music was soft and beautiful. He had a microphone in his hand, and it was just like, that was the magic.
That was the magic completely.
Yeah.
It happened
at the end of it.
It happened effortlessly.
Feels so at home.
There you go.
There you have it. Mm-hmm. Well, so Ben, how many originals are on this record? 4
That's
or
a good
5?
question. This is the last record we did. I don't think he had any originals.
Was Are You the Lady on the last one?
Oh, yeah.
So one original.
One original on the last one. At least 4 on this one, probably.
Right. And
which is cool because there's a couple tracks from his very first record.
Right.
Lovely Day, I believe. Was that on Wolf Tracks?
Wolf Tracks, I think so, yeah.
Maybe It's Raining or Lovely Day was one of the ones that was on. I think It's Raining that was on Wolf Tracks. So there's a couple songs that he had re-recorded for the first time on his last record from his first record. And so for him, it was a new arrangement of one of his originals.
But it's just great to have some of his originals on this as well, and they stand up great to all the other ones.
But I do think you created a beautiful final statement for him.
We're thrilled with it. It's just a beautiful piece of music.
Yeah, we hope the club members enjoy it.
All right, Shipley. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here, man.
My pleasure. My first podcast. This will lead to 0 more, I'm sure. But I am ready if anybody else needs my interview services.
That voice
alone.
That
radio voice. Mm-hmm. And, after a little bit of cold and a Ricola, it brings it down to the register that we need. So we'll leave that with the Ricola. Ow!
Ow!
Ow! Thank you, Adam Shipley.
Yeah, it's fun to see Shipley.
Maybe we should mention that Shipley used to be the GM of Tipitinas.
Yeah, right. In the mid-'90s for many years. Yeah. Booked Galactic on our first Florida tour.
Manager of the New Orleans Klezmer All-Stars.
Yeah, we go way back with him. Many years.
So you want to tell them about our next TRC release?
Yeah, we are very excited finally to be releasing some Zydeco music on the Tips Record Club, bringing some Western Louisiana music. And who would be better to do that than the king himself, Clifton Chenier and his Red Hot Louisiana Band. 1980s live at Tipitina's performance. Never released, never heard, probably by the more than the couple hundred people that were there that night.
Exactly. First time ever being released. And, the king of Zydeco himself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, for me personally, I think I was introduced to Louisiana music via Clifton Chenier. When I heard for the first time, I was just blown away that something like that was going down in America.
Yeah, it's super unique sound.
Yeah.
And that was at the old Tipitinas, when it was just a single-story venue at that time. It was could only fit maybe half the people that it could fit now, and it was just a small little corner bar that had great music at that point. It's amazing to have this recording out there for people.
Yeah, excited about this one.
Oh, it's also Sonny Landreth, special guest appearance. I think he was touring with him at that time, but I think it's a rarity that you get Sonny Landreth on a Clifton Chenier live recording, so we're really excited about that. He was a young hotshot right then.
Yep.
Yeah, be coming out in Christmas. I think also makes a great gift. It's time to plug the club.
Here it is. Plug the club time.
Yeah.
If you're not a member of Tipitina's Record Club, please consider doing it. TipitinasRecordClub.com. It's a gift that we say lasts a year. If you want to give a gift for somebody, you get a record mailed to you every other month, especially curated by us over here at Tipitina's, and some really great music. So check it out.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, people.
All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Later.